One of the big reasons why Ted Heath was convinced to, well, join at the time what would become the EU was because when he would go golfing, he would hear what he called the screech of the golf carts, and out would jump these businessmen who would come at him screaming about how they were being locked out of the opportunities that were going on in Europe, that we needed to be, in Europe to be able to sort of make more a change. And this is what eventually drove more and more of the Conservatives to become more and more pro EU. And now you've got a situation where, not too surprisingly, businesses are saying this Brexit friction is becoming so burdensome, it's becoming too intrusive, it is hurting our business. You need to do something about it. Now, I have said before, it would not shock me. Bear in mind, this is not going to happen anytime soon. Bear in mind, it would not shock me if maybe in, let's say, a decade's time, let's say something like that. That let's say in about 10 years' time, the Conservative Party, or at least its position on Brexit, substantially changes. Now, why is that going to happen? Well, it's all going to come back to, we say, the screeching of the golf carts. Because British businesses, for a long, long time, have chosen not to really get involved too much in politics. Now, that's not that they haven't from time to time, or businesses have spoken out. It's just that they have chosen for quite some time not to get, pardon me, not to get involved. And especially during the 2016 Brexit referendum, businesses, you did hear a lot of businesses like send out internal emails to like their workers saying, hey, you should, vote in, to remain in the EU, because if not, that's going to affect us. You heard about that. I know of a couple of people in businesses, in certainly the big businesses that are involved around here, about the exporting and importing as well, that sent out those types of internal emails. But eventually, these businesses are going to be put in a situation where it's like, well, now we're going to have to. And of course, I want to open this up because this now opens up to the Rejoin movement to say, look, there's a lot of businesses that might, shall we say, be very happy if you start, well, lobbying on their behalf to drop you, a couple of, some monies, shall we say. So there is an opportunity to rally those businesses and get them to support you, because there's going to be that opportunity there, there's going to be that money there, and well, if that money helps, shall we say, the Rejoin movement to sort of campaign more, because doing campaigning, especially for these big movements, costs money. All I'm going to say is, probably should think about, approaching some of these big companies, big things, see what they say about these types of things. But there you go. But anyway, I do want to talk about this because this came from City AM today, and it is the BCC, that's the British Chamber of Commerce, talking about how this the Brexit framework isn't sort of really working. The current deal isn't good enough. The friction is just too much. It's hurting a lot of businesses. And then, of course, they point to the Windsor Framework, where you were able to sort of, renegotiate it. And of course, in 2026, the whole thing comes up for review. And of course, who's going to be in there at that time? It's probably going to be Labour, who've said, we're going to talk to the EU, we're going to do alignment deals. And as I've said, at the moment, you would probably get in a position where Labour can come forward and say, hey, look, this is Brexit. We've done our absolute best to try and make it work, but this is as best as it is ever going to be. So are you really sure, UK, you still want to continue with this? Because this is it. This is as best as it is ever going to be. And there's a lot of people that have said this before, that is very much the position we are going to end up in. And I do think that they are right in that direction. So we're going to go over to this because, like I say, I think that the call from businesses is just going to grow even louder. I think, especially this year, where we now see those checks now put on, paperwork, physical checks coming in April, and then ultimately all of them are going to be fully implemented by the end of October. So, yeah, businesses going to start, I think, speaking up a whole lot when it comes to this. So, as always, before we get more into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can well buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, the Patreon page as well. And of course, I mentioned that before, but anyway, like I say, as always, thank you very much to all those people who help support the channel, even if you do just click on the like, share button. So let's head over to City AM, because they are covering this at the moment. Brexit friction is hurting firms. Sunak must strengthen EU relations, top business body warns. So businesses have still not adapted to the impact of Brexit, and the government must now strengthen its relations with the EU to relieve the strain on firms, the UK's top business body has now told the government. In a letter to the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, ahead of his budget on the 6th of March, the British Chamber of Commerce said that the Windsor Framework and the UK's readmission to the EU's Horizon programme showed that the UK and EU can work out compromises, and that ministers should now look to ease the trading burden on companies. So shocking. When we go to work with, go and talk to the EU, good things come out of it. Who would have thought? He said, with these improvements to UK-EU relations, a closer cooperation should be possible through a partnership bodies with the EU to look at how the trade and cooperation agreement is working in practice and can be improved. The BCC's director, Shevaun Haviland, wrote. In an interview with City AM, Bonds and Ballots series, about which is be released today, Haviland and the businesses said that they've still not adapted to these trade barriers that have been erected by Brexit and were struggling under current trading rules. He said, we obviously knew it was going to be difficult at the beginning of a whole new set of rules, Havel said, but we thought that businesses, once they'd implemented those, would sort of get used to it. But actually, that hasn't happened. And it's the same. I've said before, I had a friend, especially working in exporting, went from 10 minutes to fill out one form to then 2 hours. Like, there is a big difference. A big difference. Even big businesses can recognize the friction that's going on here and how this sort of slows everything down. So they are going to be, I think, really agitating to really, get rid of some of this, or at least reduce this in as many areas as they can. So anyway, continue. So according to the BCC's most recent trade survey in 2023, some 77% of UK firms felt the post-Brexit trade and cooperation agreement was not contributing to their business growth, with 56% said that they had trouble in making any new trade agreements work for their sales and export strategies. It is crucial that we start making this easier for businesses, Harvard said, if we want to see a bit more of a political will to make some of these changes, practical, realistic changes that will help smooth that transition. And the thing is, at the moment, you do not have a government that is interested in making practical, realistic changes. Because again, the current sort of Conservative government, very pro-Brexit. Labour said, we are going to look at that. We're going to look at doing alignment deals. We're going to look at doing stuff like that. That's practical, realistic changes that I think businesses are going to be very happy with. And then eventually they're going to go, well, would be better if we were, sort of in the EU. But there you go. So the call for stronger ties from the EU came amid the hosts from the ask of the Chancellor ahead of his March budget, including business rates reform and a review of the VAT tax threshold, which the BCC warned was now choking off growth. In this, they asked for their budget asks for the government should now match industry-led funding of £3 million for planning qualifications to help plug the lack of local resources. Ministers should now commit funds to business-led local skills improvement plans beyond the current 2025 cutoff to at least 2028. That would be very good. There is a massive skills gap when it comes in the UK for a whole ton of industry areas, and businesses really want to see these skills gaps be plugged. And especially now, again, with the current government making it harder to sort of, get people in from abroad to help fill these gaps, skilling up, the population, probably a very good idea. But there you go. They also said VAT registration should be reviewed and be restarted with a view to removing the existing cliff edge. The Chancellor should reintroduce new internationally competitive tax-free shopping scheme. The government should reform business rates to make it a tax that incentivizes growth. Again, nothing I'm necessarily against. I think there is, again, a ton of stuff I think governments could do to help do this. I think stuff around apprenticeships before, something, again, government should really look at, especially if we want to really skill up people in a ton of areas. But there you go. So back to it. So the TCA was a free trade agreement that was penned that was planned by the European Commission and the UK government after Brexit, and it came into force on the 1st of January 2021. The treaty is now set to be reviewed in 2026. However, the BCC's fresh calls come ahead of a new slew of expected changes in April, which could inflict yet more friction on companies now trading with the EU. The first phase of the UK's so-called border target operating model began on January 31st, with imports of plants and animal products from the EU now requiring certain health certificates. However, the BCC has now fired a warning shot to the government of a new set of rules around the physical checks coming in from April. There's also more checks coming in from October as well, but the April one's probably going to be the biggest first set of challenges when it comes to looking at that. They said of more concern is the lack of clarity around these physical checks for consignments due to start in April, and of course the cost of these new charges for overseas imports to help pay for the system. The BCC warned back in January. So, again, businesses still causing problems for them, still going to be an issue for them, something that they are going to want to see reduced and this friction lessened as much as possible. So, it's going to be, it's obvious the direction of travel the UK should go in. But, you just have to have, I think, the political will to be able to do that. And to be honest, the next parliament, as we said before, going to be a lot less Brexiteers, going to be a lot less Brexity atmosphere. And I think we are going to be in the next parliament, be able to have those conversations that we should have been having really since 2016. But we haven't been able to because, well, you get shouted at by people like Jacob Rees-Mogg say, but the will of the people, the will of the people. So, again, something, hopeful and good to look forward to. But as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.